First of all, you start off by clearly establishing the learning goal. And so what I would expect to see in a learning goal, or learning intention, some schools call it, is the cognitive verb. So if it's explained, you would see that written into the learning goal or the learning intention. This is followed by showing a real-world example. That's very helpful to students to see this skill in action. Then you can show students that there are words that may have a similar meaning to the key task word. So, for example, if my key task word is describe, words such as state or identify, they have a similar intent to describe. So even though describe's not in the question, it's useful for students to know that they could be being asked to describe something by the use of a similar task word with a similar intent. I believe also that we should alert students to questions where the cognition is not there as a cognitive verb. Now, there's a bit of discussion amongst the teachers I've spoken to that questions will always have a key task word in them. I don't know that I agree with that or necessarily even like it, because sometimes questions that are phrased using a key task word, they're a bit clumsy. So I'll give you a good example. To what extent is a question stem that implies some measure of evaluation? So if I see in a question, to what extent does something, that really means I've probably got to evaluate. If I use the word evaluate in the question stem, it's a bit more clumsy. So I think it's important that we alert students to the intent of the question. I call it cognitive intent, because there will be questions where the cognitive verb is absent, and I think students need to be able to recognise cognitive intent, which is less obvious than the cognitive verb, particularly as they move on to universities. Certainly if they're at schools that use the International Baccalaureate, I've looked at their papers, their questions, and quite a number of them don't have a cognitive verb in them.